Welcome to this episode of my podcast, and I'm so happy to introduce to you guys. He is a surgeon, a serial entrepreneur, investor, author, consultant, executive coach, and a keynote speaker. Dr. Liu received his MD-PhD from the Medical Scientist Training Program offered jointly through the Baylor College of Medicine and the Department of Bioengineering at Rice University. A member of the Valhalla AI Healthcare Startup Advisory Board, where he directs digital strategy, Dr. Liu achieved financial freedom by the age of 29 and FIRE in 2016 through his multiple passive investment income strategies. After traveling the globe for a year, he started his consulting company in 2017 to spread awareness about the importance of financial literacy among the physician community. Dr. Liu is a 4 times Amazon author, including How I Quit My Lucrative Medical Career and Achieved Financial Freedom Using Real Estate, has been a contributor to Kevin MD, Seek 2018-2020, Passive Income MD's Leverage and Growth Summit, and the White Coat Investor Financial Literacy and Wellness Conference in 2021. Dr. Liu has his own monthly career success membership program, along with a rapidly growing 780 plus member private Facebook group called Financial Freedom for Physicians. And he has been named by Board Vitals as one of the top 50 MDs to follow on Instagram. Well, welcome, Dr. Liu, to my podcast. I'm so glad to have you come on.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me on the show, and I'm happy to offer my wisdom and expertise.
I love it. Yes, I think we have tons to talk about. So this is great. So, Dr. Liu, if we could get started by you just telling our audience a little bit about your journey and how you came about all this money stuff at a relatively young age.
Sure. So my journey is actually very unique, inspiring, as well as very entrepreneurial, and it's really out of the box because I grew up at the cusp of the industrial age and right when the baby boomers and Gen X and millennials. So I grew up always as the outsider. My parents, they were first generation immigrants, and I was always surrounded by people that were more popular, more wealthier than myself. So at an early age, I attempted to differentiate myself by going against the mainstream and also adopting different ideals. So part of that was that honed my entrepreneurial instinct. And so part of that was because I grew up with not having a lot, so I developed a very entrepreneurial instinct. So my modus of my mo from day one was always to be financially independent and financially free. And what that meant was that I would never need to apply for a job. I would never need to depend upon a job. I would never need to depend upon a boss or the government, social security, pensions, all of these things that were touted by the industrial age. So early age, I started a lot of businesses. A lot of them failed. Some of them did very well. And like I said, I was always the entrepreneur. I went to Baylor for medical school, part of the MD-PhD program. And it was during my PhD years at Rice when really my entrepreneurial ventures really started to take off. That was a hub for a lot of innovative ideas. That's where nanotechnology was starting. So, and I was surrounded by a lot of creative, very smart individuals. So I started 2 companies involved in stocks and as well in options trading as well as real estate. And so I was very successful at it. So by my senior year of medical school, I was already generating a full-time 6-figure income, without really needing to depend upon anyone for extra income. But like I said, I came from very humble beginnings. So a lot of my parents and my siblings, my wife and my peers all encouraged me to pursue the traditional route for my own benefit. So I went that. I matched into orthopedic surgery in 2007 at Rutgers University. but that was more just to go with the mainstream and please my parents and society, and it wasn't really my passion. So I did it for 2 years, and there was just one day where I couldn't look myself in the face because I just wasn't passionate about it. I didn't want to spend 120 hours per week in a career that really I didn't have any passion for. So I resigned, and I started my full-time real estate entrepreneurial company. So from 2008, that was at the peak of the financial crisis, and from 2016, I invested in single family residences, and so by 2016, I was 38 years old. I had become a multimillionaire, so I really didn't need. I could pretty much was set for the rest of my life, and I could really focus on things that I really wanted to do. So I took a year off to travel the world, and in 2017, that's when I really realized that this whole issue that physicians weren't really financially literate and needed more awareness about financial literacy, wellness, balance, career balance, and so that's why I started my consulting company. And so I'm happy to take any questions from there.
Wonderful. Wow, it's been quite the journey, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And you're clearly very accomplished and very smart because you didn't just like go to little, I mean, you went to some big schools and did some big stuff, right? Like even in the medical field, even though it sounds to me like maybe that wasn't quite your passion, but you kind of you did that too in addition to everything else you've done. So Dr. Lou, what are some maybe challenges that you faced as you've been building up this business aspect of things? Because being an entrepreneur, and especially outside of medicine, it takes a certain skill set that almost is can't be taught, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I the battle was within myself because, like I said, I was always the outsider, and for a long time I always thought that being the outsider was actually a disadvantage. So that's why I pursued the high paying professions. I went through I was always pursuing status and prestige, and really worried about cared about what other people thought of me, what kind of clothes I wore, what kind of car, where I lived, etc. So really the battle was internal. So really caring about what other people said about me, trying to live up to this ideal and standard that really wasn't me, trying to pretend to be somebody that wasn't me. And really that for a long time, that's what I really struggled with, because I always thought that if you were a doctor, then that was the epitome of success. Like I said, there's so many other definitions of success. There's successful mother, there's people involved in their community. So it all depends on your values and ideals. So that's one thing I struggle with. The other, and then so that really caring about what other people thought, the fear of criticism, really paying a lot of attention to the naysayers and the haters and the sort of the people that held you back. But I think really with my success, there was one point where I was able to just say, I have to start to, if I don't live according to my own values and ideals. So 2008 was my first step towards really living my true self, and then 2016 was the next step. So, and if I didn't really follow those values and ideals, then I really wasn't going to be able to reach my full potential.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes we come about it a little bit roundabout ways, don't we? Yeah. So, so having traveled through that journey and now clearly still very much a success, right? Like, I mean, it's like if you've reached financial independent status, um, that generally means that you can pretty much like lay on the beach in Hawaii, right?
Exactly.
And not worry. So
Yeah.
what's the drive that's making you continue on this path of continuing to help fellow physicians and serve them in
Uh-huh.
ways that you have found meaningful for yourself?
Yeah, really, my drive has been, as doctors, we're really focused on one person. So as physicians, or surgeons, we treat a patient, we treat a certain individual. So that's one to one. But after 2017, I really focused more on leveraging, helping not just one person, but helping tens of people, hundreds, thousands. So that's how I've leveraged technology, social media, and really getting my message out. So more of it's just trying to get the word out, get the message out. And with if you can, if you spend an hour with a patient, you help one patient. At the end, we all have 24 hours. So, you spend 8 to 10 hours in your job, you're able to, help 10, 15 patients a day. But if you're able to leverage that 10 to 15 hours to help, potentially hunt thousands of tens of thousands and millions. So that's really my drive, is to really find meaning, joy, and satisfaction, live according to my values and beliefs, and then and really just leave more of a legacy now.
I like that. I like that. So, can you tell us a little bit more about your experiences around financial literacy, especially amongst physicians?
Yeah. So it's interesting because, like I said, and this is where me being the outsider, really helped, because I think going through the whole process of pre-med, med, residency, fellowship, it really teaches you a lot of skill sets on goals, and how to set long-term ambitions, and actually set plans to achieve those. So that in itself is a good thing. The thing is that medicine is very cultural. So there's a lot of stigma. There's a lot of rules, standards, and a lot of social norms that we have to abide by. But like I was saying, really, we go to medical school. A lot of people go to medical school for the patients, for the love of patients. Some of them go for the income. Like, we all enjoy very bountiful and plentiful incomes. But the thing is, in today's age, a high earned income does not equate to financial independence or financial freedom. We have to learn how to leverage that earned income, as well as all of our positive traits and attributes, so that we can learn how to invest and produce residual producing assets, so that we can slowly scale back and maximize our time and our freedom. So really, I think the whole culture of medicine, because people mostly think that physicians make a lot of money. All physicians are rich and wealthy, but that's not really the case. The other thing is that I noticed is that physicians as a cohort, we start our careers 8 to 10 years after the average individual. So the average individual, if they're making six figures 10 years ahead of us, they have all that time to compound. So not only are we starting out behind, but we also have strapped with student loan debt. On top of that, we have significant high earned incomes. So those is the most heavily taxed brackets. So what I really advocate is having a moderate amount of earning income, but having a large amount of portfolio, passive business, and dividend income. So that way your tax rates are much lower. And then on top of that, we have inflation, and we suffer from malpractice, lawsuits, divorces, and things of that nature. So really, a high earned income for physicians is not the only thing, but we have to really become more financially literate and aware of what to do with that income in order to get financially independent and financially free.
Well, what about this whole, I'll tell you, um, this deferred gratification stuff that goes on, because the flip side is, it doesn't honestly matter how much you earn if you're constantly overspending, right? If
Yeah.
you're always spending more than, even if you're earning $500,000, but if you're spending 600,000, you're basically going to always be in the poorhouse, right?
Right.
So where does that sort of fit in with, because people come out and then they suddenly see big salaries, right, after having been a poor medical student, and somebody who's a resident who's barely making enough to make ends meet, and now they have this big salary, and at that time, I'm seeing at least two things happening. There may be more, and one is the ones who are, pretty with it in terms of mindset. They live like
Uh,
a resident. They're like, I'm going to live like a resident for the
uh,
next 2 or 3 years, right? I'm going to pay off my loans. I don't want to have any debt on my head, and then I can retire at 45, 50, whatever.
uh,
And then there's the other group that's like going out there and buying the 10,000 square foot mansion and the latest Lexus or Tesla or whatever the car car of choice might be, and then they're getting deeper and deeper into debt. So can you address that sort of phenomena and
yeah,
what you say would be maybe a good thing to think about at that point?
yeah. I think a lot of it's that phenomenon is actually because of Western capitalism and Western consumerism. So really, what that leads to is a high consumption lifestyle, and it's something that leads to what it's called keeping up with the Joneses, or it's called status anxiety, status envy, and it's really
Right,
just
or the hedonic treadmill,
yeah,
right?
the
That
rat
you can
race.
never get. Yep.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And it's really touted by the media because that sort of thing gets a lot of views, and and it's interesting because I'm rereading this book, The Millionaire Mind by Thomas Stanley, and really we celebrate the actors, the actresses, the athletes, the sports stars, and we assume that because in order to achieve that lifestyle, we have to have a very large income. So that's sort of promulgated by the media. But like I said, you can either generate an income to meet your expenses, or you can make your expenses so that it's equal to your needs or your wants. So really, and again, that's also lifestyle choices. Um, Again, physicians have worked really hard. So am I saying go eat ramen every night and don't spend any money? No, no, I'm not saying that.
Right.
But I mean, there's a point where we have to really start considering. You have to start budgeting, and so the hashtag live like a resident, 20% savings. Don't get watch your student loan debts. These are all things that are becoming more and more important because if you, like I said, you can make $500,000, but if you spend 600,000 versus you could make 100,000 and you save, you live off of 10%, 20% of that, you can you're going to get much farther ahead. So and like I said, at least have a savings rate. Not only do you have to earn income, not only you have to maximize your earning potential, but you also have to have a defensive play. So you have to manage your expenses. You have to have a savings rate. You have to have investing, and all of these play into a physician's financial fitness arsenal.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's a different kind of leverage, right? Like that's another way of leveraging what you're doing in a way, your earnings, how well you're managing your earnings becomes, very important as well. You kind of touched upon before we started recording a little bit around like mindset,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like there's this whole idea because as you know, I'm a money coach and I really deal more with the mindset than the practical things. Like you're kind of doing the practical stuff of how to invest in real estate or how to leverage that market and ins and outs of it.
Uh-huh.
But doing that inner work, because you've mentioned this a few times, right? Like it's about your goals and your values in life, because honestly, if you ask, and not just physicians now, I'm just talking the general public, right? If you ask 10 people, how much do you think you need to have in the bank to
No.
like walk away from something that you're not really enjoying doing?
Yeah.
And you get huge range of answers, anything from 100,000 to 50 million, or just these insane numbers, right?
Right.
And that to me represents that people haven't done their inner work.
Yeah.
They haven't really sat down and said, what is important to me? You know, how do I want to be spending my time, my given 24 hours a day, because that's all everybody gets, whether you're, Joe or you're Bill Gates, we all get the same amount of time.
Right.
And there's this sort of this insanity almost, and that's why I like the idea of balance, right? no, like you said, we're not telling people like go eat ramen noodles every night, right? Like, I mean, as a physician, you're making good money. So,
Yeah.
so can you touch upon that a little bit? It also doesn't like I honestly, Christopher, I'm seeing a lot of craziness.
Hmm.
I'm seeing a lot like I just joined Clubhouse and there's all these rooms about how to go from being a millionaire to a billionaire. And I'm thinking, why?
Yeah.
And maybe that's just me because I'm a minimalist. I don't think we even celebrated our first million, to be honest with you. Like, I had no idea when we crossed the $1 million mark
Uh-huh.
because it just wasn't on my radar, right?
Right.
Um, so tell me a little bit. What are your views about that? About people having these sort of almost this weirdness around money,
Yeah.
mindset. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think again, it's a lot of it's promulgated by the media, and like I said, they want to encourage a very high consumption lifestyle, so that they have to sort of tout these very high spenders, these celebrities, these public figures, and really that's probably 1%, but it's actually interesting because I've been studying minimalism, I've been studying stoicism, and there's a lot of abundance, and just everything is can be provided for as long as you provide the value. All of this thing where we have to hoard things and we have to accumulate a certain amount in order to feel comfortable. That's just that's promulgated by the media, and that's based on a scarcity mindset. But I do think you do need a base minimum. So like I said, in order to actually live comfortably in the Western world, you do need a base, at least 1 million to 5 million. That's for just to be safe and okay, without a job. If you want something more lavish and luxurious, then 10 million plus. But like I said, you need a base, but a lot of it a lot of the mindsets is based on fear and scarcity. So I've been studying this number. How much do you need to retire? So that they said that 25 times your annual income, 4% withdrawal rate, and I'm just thinking to that because that really doesn't make sense to me, because that's just like a fixed number. And so I what I what I talk about is cash flow. So you keep your expenses low, or you keep them within moderation, and you create assets and investments that create cash flow that can cover those expenses. And as your cash flow grows, you can increase your expenditures. So that's how I sort of think of it. So that 25x with the 4% is based on a single number, and it assumes that you have to have accumulated a huge amount in order to fully walk away. Whereas,
Yeah.
just go ahead.
Yeah. So I think there's some. I guess it depends, is what I would say. So
Yeah.
I think the 25% um, or 25x
Yeah.
is not the income; it's your expenses. So it's important to remember. So it's 25x your annual expenses,
Uh,
which you and I both will agree. Half the world doesn't even track how much we are spending, right?
right.
Like if you pull a man off the street and say, "Do you know how much you're spending per month or per year?" They look at you like blankly. So I think the very first principle is every person really should be tracked. Like it's like your weight. How
Yeah.
do you know if you've gained weight or lost weight if you don't step on the scale once in a while? And it's mind-boggling to me that people won't take. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be Mint or some fancy app. It can be an Excel spreadsheet.
Hmm.
Credit cards now give you what you've spent on. They break it down by you spend so much on groceries, you spend so much on car expenses, whatever. Tracking doesn't have to be some crazy complicated thing, right? So first thing is to know your numbers, right?
Yeah.
How much are you spending? How much is it requiring for you to just maintain even your current lifestyle, right?
Right.
So that's the 25x coming from your expenses. The 4% rule, came about from they looked at it over like average. And you're right, I think is really talking about once you've accumulated enough, and like you said, it's a kind of a cash flow, whether you're getting like dividends, capital gains, or from your real estate investments, that's all falls under the bucket of, cash flow. So you're trying not to dip into your principal as much as possible. And then if you can get that relatively but again, 4% is average. So if the market is doing really well, maybe you can bump it up to 5%. and the downturns you want to bump it down to maybe 2.5 to 3%. So you're right. So it can't be these fixed numbers. There's still that flexibility, but I think it's that average is kind of, going based on how the stock market has done historically speaking, and so on and so forth. So
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And so, as long as you have investments that produce passive income to meet your expenses, then that sort of frees up your time. So, for example, with early retirement at 38, still at 42, in 45 and above, I expect my income to go higher and higher because I can invest extra time to find more passive income producing investments. So that's how I like to think of it. But and like I also the whole idea of just a single retirement, you reach a certain age and retire. I like more of a fluid and more of a ever changing. So I like to think of like take a sabbatical or take mini retirements, and that way you can sort of enjoy the time a lot more when you're younger as well as in
When
your
you're
middle age.
younger and healthier, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
That's a very good point. I mean, this whole, the way society has it set up, right? Like work hard, work hard, work hard, work hard, work hard, and then you retire at 65, and then the next day you drop dead. I mean, you've heard stories like that, right?
yeah,
And you're like,
exactly.
what happened? Like all this time that we worked. So again, a form of deferred gratification, except that there is sort of no guarantee at the end, right? So I
Right.
love that idea of, and I did that in my career where I dropped my FTE, I took a 6 month sabbatical, and I think it gave me some longevity. I mean, I somehow managed to last 16 years. I might have only lasted five, if I hadn't done that. So
Yeah.
I think that's a great point to make as well. So, physicians are super busy human beings just by definition. And honestly, I sort of was tempted at one point with real estate, and then I realized it's just like got such a steep learning curve, and it's just too much effort. And my values and goals were like, don't go there.
Uh-huh.
What is some of the advice you can give people who are like super busy but might still be interested in getting their toes wet in like these passive income streams that you're talking about?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of vehicles that that physicians can leverage because their most precious asset is their time. So if they don't have time, they can always leverage their like I said, their good thing is to have high earned income, so they can leverage their income to produce the gains. So if especially real estate, a lot of physicians don't have time to either look or manage or
Right.
to they don't want to be landlords. So there's a lot of syndicates. So right now I've always been a direct owner in real estate, but like I said, these days I really want to focus and scale my social media company, and so in order to do that, I have to sort of step away from real estate. So I've hired property managers, but even then you still have to manage the property managers. So now this year I'm looking into syndicates. So I'm learning about syndicates. I've never invested in syndicates, but I'm reading. I picked up the book Hands Off Investor, and I'm starting to talk to a lot of physicians that are invested in syndicates to get their to know the ins and outs, the process, what the red flags, what to watch for, and things. So there's syndicates. There's always equities. I mean, you can't go wrong with equities. So over 20-year period, almost it's almost I don't want to say 100%, but
Right.
the market will gain. Plus
Right.
with the Fed printing so much money and low interest rates, everybody, in order to get gains, you have to be in the market. So, but like I said, just paper assets, syndicates, and then a lot of physicians, if they're self-employed or they have their own practices, they can invest in those as well. So,
Right, that's definitely another way to just invest in your, instead of a side gig, invest in your main gig, if you will,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
And grow that and scale that and like hire more people to
Yeah,
do the work, so that frees up your time and all of that sort of thing, right? Like,
yeah,
I mean, more and more hospitals are buying up these little practices. Like, why not become really business savvy with your primary practice
yeah,
that you already know how to run? you already have. I just interviewed another person who really made her living that way and retired at 53, So,
Yeah.
so there's various, I guess what we're trying to say is there are various ways of doing it, and each person has to find what fits in with what feels true to them.
Uh-huh.
But again, really going back to saying, first, like, don't throw numbers off your head, right? Because honestly, Christopher, I look at money as like a hungry ghost, right? Because there's literally theoretically speaking, there is literally the possibility of making infinite amount of dollars, right? Like,
Uh-huh.
what I just read, Elon Musk now just beat Bezos as the richest man, and it's like 300 billion or whatever. So it's an example of, like you said, consumerism, capitalism, this whole thing of I want more of the chunk, right?
Right.
And I'll be honest, that doesn't sit very well with me.
Yeah.
I don't want 300 billion. Like, I wouldn't know what to do with that money, seriously, right?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, it brings a whole other layer of complexity. Like,
Yeah.
Warren Buffett turned over his money to the Bill Gates Foundation because he said, for me, the making money part was easy. The spending is hard because he wanted to make sure he, was contributing to charitable organizations, and he didn't want to take the trouble of vetting them, right? So he did the smart thing, and he was like, you take my money and figure out how to like give it to, for good purposes. Because I do want to bring up that philanthropy piece, right?
Yeah.
Because we're smart, we're physicians, we do have the capacity to make a lot of money. And you're right, once we have, whether we feel it's $1 million to 5 or 10 million or whatever it might be, when it goes beyond that, can we start thinking about how we give back to society, right? Because look at the state the world is in right now.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, how does that feel? I just don't. I'll give you a quick example. One of the richest men in India, he built this. It's like a 33-story, because in Bombay there's no land, right? You can't go, like Hong Kong and places, you can't go horizontal. You got to go vertical, right?
Right.
He built this 33 or 35-story quote unquote house, but like whole place is his, right in the middle of one of the biggest slums in Bombay.
Oh, gee. Okay. So,
Right?
yeah.
So what, but every time I see that picture, it just brings up so much. It brings up bile in my throat,
Right.
right? Because what are you saying to the world?
Right.
You know what I mean? And yes, money is important. Of course it's important. And of course we all want to have a good lifestyle.
Right.
But at some point, like, don't let money become the hungry ghost, right? Don't get to the point where, because you can get to this point, like we said, of the hedonic treadmill, where even when you reach that 10 million, then the next is like, oh, I want 50 million. And then you get to 50 and then 100. And you're never happy.
Right.
Because you can never fill that hungry ghost.
Exactly.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, like I said, I was fortunate because my dad, he when we were kids, he would force us to invest our time into giving back. So, you know, even if when we had no money, I would go to the homeless shelter or the food shelters and volunteer my time. So that taught me the value of always giving back. For me, generating income and passive income, it's fun. It's a process. The rewards are nice, but like I said, once you achieve a certain level, then so that's why in 2016 I decided to step away and take a year off and reassess my life, because I up to that point I was just selfishly accumulating and achieving for myself, and so I wanted to more contribute and give back on a grander scale. So it really wasn't about the money or the next 5 million or 10 million. It was just more about sharing and helping others, and especially because back in 2008 when I stepped away from my career, that was unheard of. It was it's almost sacrilege to do that sort of thing. But now a lot of physicians are becoming more aware of these types of issues, and so that's why from 28 to 2020, I want to share my struggles and my experience and give back as well. So, and then and then also give back to charity, give back to causes that you're passionate about. That's all part of it.
Absolutely. to go there, because like I said, I'm seeing too much noise on all these new social media too, right? Like, just how can we make more and more and more? And it's
Yeah.
like, at some point, you're going to realize that happiness is not tied to your net worth, right? Like, it's a completely different, once you've achieved that, it's a completely different stratosphere you're in terms of happiness and joy and wellness and balance, like we've talked about. So Dr. Lou, that's been such a fun conversation.
Uh-huh.
Can you tell our audience where they can find you, how, if they want to work with you, or they want to get some mentorship from you or some words of advice? Because clearly you're a very accomplished young man. You've done a lot in your life, and you
Uh-huh.
have so much to offer the world. Where can people find you?
Well, you can go onto Instagram, and my channel is Dr. Chris Liu, MD-PhD. So I'm on Twitter as well, the same handle. LinkedIn, you can Google my name. You can go to Amazon, see my 4 books, and my email address is Christopher Liu MD-PhD at gmail.com. So I'm actually that's I'm very easily accessible, and I readily respond. So Facebook as well, you can type in Christopher Liu, my Facebook page as well. So any of the major social media outlets, I'm on there.
Wonderful. Do you have any sort of programs that are coming up, or masterminds or anything like that you'd like to
Oh,
let our audience know about as well?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, we just finished up a workshop last month on short-term rentals, and just this past weekend, I did a workshop on how to write your book in 30 days or less, and then I have an upcoming workshop on getting started as a consultant in 2021. So I do these monthly masterminds, and then but there's also there's weekly webinars as well as monthly workshops as well. So reach out to me, and I'll tell you about all the programs and all the schedules.
Wonderful. So great. Well, it was such a pleasure having you on board. I think we had a pretty deep-ish conversation around all things finance related.
Yeah, exactly.
The conversation might have gone in certain directions that we didn't expect, but I think that's the beauty of podcasting,
Yeah.
where we just chat like old friends and bring our views to the table. And hopefully, people who are listening to this will subscribe, will rate it, will review it,
Yeah,
and reach out to you for help as well. And we're just here to spread our knowledge
exactly.
and share the wealth, if you will,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And if any of the audience members are inclined in videos, I also have a YouTube channel as well. So that's growing in numbers, and I'm putting out a video every week. So
Wow, you're prolific, I tell you. It's awesome. It's awesome. So, do you have any last minute thoughts or words of advice for me or for the audience? We'd love to hear that.
yeah, I think I like this idea of minimalism and stoicism, and I really like this idea of balance and wellness, and really taking things in moderation, and sort of stepping back and assessing what are the underlying messages that we're being fed, and sort of being able to recognize those and make consciously aware choices.
I love that. Yes. Too much noise. Sometimes we're in the space and we can't hear ourselves listen. We can't hear our own voice.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so
All
much,
right.
Dr. Lou. It was such a pleasure having you on board.
Yeah, thanks so much.